Washington removed the dictator, left the old elite in power, secured access to oil, and did not lose a single American soldier. In the Pentagon and the State Department, this operation has already been called the Venezuelan template. The question is, where and when will it be used again? In the third and final part, we examine how the Venezuelan experience is reshaping the US approach to Latin America, why the Trump administration now prefers targeted leadership replacement over invasions, and which countries, Nicaragua, Bolivia, Cuba, are next in line for democratization. Before discussing the next targets, let us clearly define what the Venezuelan template means from Washington's perspective. This is not an invasion like Iraq or Afghanistan. It is a new type of hybrid operation. Stage 1, economic strangulation. Years of sanctions against the oil sector, frozen assets, and exclusion from international financial systems. By 2025, Venezuela's economy had been devastated to the point where the regime was barely holding on. But there is one problem. Regimes often survive better in ruined economies than in prosperous ones. Stage 2, political legitimization of an alternative. The United States recognized Edmundo Gonzalez as the elected president back in 2024. A parallel center of power was created. The opposition received international support, funding, and media resources. Stage 3, a targeted operation to capture the leader. January 3rd, 2026. Not the bombing of Caracas, but a carefully planned intelligence raid. Minimal noise, maximum effect. Maduro was extracted, the regime decapitated. Stage 4, a deal with the local elites. The US does not touch the generals, dissolve parliament, or conduct purges. In exchange, loyalty and control over oil revenues. Delcy Rodriguez remains in power, but under the supervision of the US Treasury Department. Stage 5, resource integration. Western companies gain access to oil fields. Royalties flow into accounts controlled by the United States.
The country returns to the Western energy system. This template is a realist's dream. Low cost, quick results, minimal risks. And now Washington is thinking, where can it be applied again? We already examined the situation in Iran, where Washington attempted to apply a similar scheme through the targeted elimination of a leader, but there it produced a very different effect. Perhaps on the American continents, local elites are more willing to negotiate? The first and most obvious target is Nicaragua. Daniel Ortega has ruled the country since 2007. Together with his wife, Rosario Murillo, they have effectively created a family dictatorship. After the suppression of the 2018 protests, in which hundreds of people were killed, the regime became even harsher. The opposition has been crushed, the media subordinated, and elections turned into a farce. Why is Nicaragua important to the United States? For 3 reasons. First, geography. Nicaragua lies at the center of the Americas, between the Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. The Chinese-backed Nicaraguan Canal Project, a competitor to the Panama Canal, has still not been realized, but remains a strategic threat to the US. Second, Russia's military presence. A Russian satellite tracking center operates in Nicaragua, and since 2024, there have been discussions about deploying intermediate-range missiles there. This is a direct challenge to the Monroe Doctrine. Third, the migration crisis. Nicaragua has become a transit hub for migrants from around the world heading toward the US southern border. Ortega uses this as leverage against Washington. According to analytical centers, Washington is already developing a Nicaraguan scenario. Sanctions against the gold mining and mining industries were introduced back in 2024-2025. Nicaragua's already weak economy is on the brink. The opposition in exile, mainly in Costa Rica and the United States, is prepared to become an alternative government. The difference from Venezuela, Nicaragua has no oil.
But it has something else: transit potential and geopolitical positioning.
The United States may be interested in regime change not for resources, but to push Russia and China out of its backyard. The question is not whether an operation will happen, the question is when. Experts point to two possible windows: either late 2026, if Trump needs a foreign policy victory before the midterm elections, or early 2027. The template has already been tested. Bolivia, resources and internal political crisis. The second potential target is Bolivia. Here, everything is more complicated and more interesting. Bolivia has something Venezuela and Nicaragua do not: lithium. The world's largest known lithium reserves, around 21 million tons. In the era of electric vehicles and green energy, this is the #1 strategic resource. Under Evo Morales and later Luis Arce, Bolivia signed lithium development contracts with Chinese companies, CATL and CBC. Russia also has a small stake. Western companies, the American Albemarle and Germany's BMW, were left out. Washington is not happy with this. In the context of the global race for lithium, control over Bolivian deposits gives China an enormous advantage. But there is also an internal factor. Bolivia is experiencing a fierce struggle within the ruling socialist MAS movement between President Luis Arce and former President Evo Morales. Despite a court ban, Morales plans to run again in 2026. The country is divided. The economy is suffering from declining gas revenues. Social tensions are rising. The scenario for Bolivia could differ from Venezuela's.
The United States is unlikely to attempt to capture President Arce. He is not the same type of figure as Maduro and is not formally under sanctions. But Washington could support the opposition, or more likely, use economic leverage, imposing tariffs on Bolivian lithium if it is processed by Chinese companies, or offering alternative contracts to Western firms that could pull the Bolivian elite into their orbit. A more probable scenario, the United States will try to force a revision of lithium contracts by pressuring the Arce government through its dependence on US dollars and markets. If Arce refuses, they may try to replace him with a more compliant figure, possibly from the same MAS movement but without ties to China. The Venezuelan template in its pure form will not work here, but its elements, sanctions, support for the opposition, resource blackmail, will be applied. The third and most ambitious target is Cuba. Cuba is not Venezuela or Nicaragua. It is a symbol, the last stronghold of communism in the Western Hemisphere. But after the Venezuelan crisis, the Cuban regime found itself in a deadly trap. As we discussed in Part 2, Cuba lost 80% of the subsidized oil it had received from Venezuela. The energy crisis returned. The economy, already strangled by the embargo, is collapsing. The tourism sector, the country's main source of foreign currency, never fully recovered after the pandemic and new sanctions. According to several sources, secret talks between Havana and Washington took place in March 2026. Cuba reportedly offered to release hundreds of political prisoners, allow independent election observers, and even scale back military cooperation with Russia. In exchange, it sought the lifting of the embargo and the resumption of oil supplies, this time from the United States. So far, the negotiations have led nowhere. The Diaz-Canel regime is wavering. Capitulation to the United States could provoke a split within the Communist Party and the military. But without oil, Cuba will not survive. Russia does not have the resources to save Cuba. Moscow may send a couple of ships and a ton of wheat, but not 100,000 barrels of oil per day. China is also in no hurry. Beijing is focused on its own projects, and Cuba is merely a bargaining chip in negotiations with Washington. Cuba is the final boss for the Venezuelan template. But here, Washington is unlikely to carry out a forceful seizure of the leader. Although military action against Cuba was reportedly seriously considered in Washington, the prolonged operation against Iran delayed those plans. A different scenario was more likely: a strategy of strangulation. tightening sanctions, supporting civil society, waiting for collapse. At the same time, through the examples of Venezuela and Iran, the United States has shown the world that it is prepared not only to talk about the use of force, but actually to use it if negotiations reach a dead end. Let us summarize the interim conclusions. The Venezuelan experience is radically changing the U.S. approach to Latin America. First, rejection of large-scale invasions. Iraq and Afghanistan were too expensive. Targeted leadership replacement is cheaper and faster. Massive attacks and the destruction of infrastructure and the economy serve as an example that would make any neighboring country think twice about confronting Washington. Second, working with local elites. The United States no longer tries to build democracy from scratch.
It negotiates with those already in power. Generals, oligarchs, technocrats. The main thing is loyalty and access to resources. This transition was formally documented in U.S. Doctrine at the end of 2025. Third, resource priority. Oil, lithium, rare earth metals, transit corridors. If a country lacks resources that interest the United States, it may be left alone with its dictatorship. Democratization has become a paid service. Fourth, minimizing humanitarian obligations. The United States will not rebuild Venezuela. It will not feed refugees. That is the task of neighboring countries and international organizations. Washington takes the resources and leaves. Which countries are next? Beyond Nicaragua, Bolivia, and Cuba? Perhaps Haiti, Honduras, or Peru? Everything will be determined by political alignment and the presence of resources. But the main lesson of Venezuela is different. The United States no longer needs to conquer countries. It is enough to buy the elites. And while left-wing regimes once relied on anti-Americanism, now they have a new argument. Look what happened to Maduro. Do you want the same? Those in top positions will answer no. Those in secondary positions may answer yes.
Africa is burning. The Middle East is in flames. Latin America stands frozen, waiting for a new order. We will continue following these developments. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, leave a like, and write in the comments, which country do you think is next?